Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. First time I was here in Tallinn was 1993, so that's 15 years ago, and of course it's a dramatic difference. It's a difference which is, I think, great and positive, and of course a difference which can be attributed to far-reaching and radical free market reforms from Estonian governments. I will try to speak about the current economic situation and the financial crisis, but also try to have a bit of a long-term perspective on this, so that I will keep focus on long-term reforms, not only short-term bailouts. Much of what I will be saying is based on the conclusions and facts in my book, The Guide to Reform. So that is where you can find all the evidence for what I'm actually about to say. So I'm going to speak about our crisis required for radical reforms. And I will not, I could say no, but then I wouldn't have the time to say any more, so I will get into this. So, first of all, I'd like to say that this is the blue line shows the world GDP, the world economy, during the past 25 years, which has been increasing very strongly, and we've had a golden age globally, economically. And so the red dots show the share of the developing world population in extreme poverty, and that's been decreasing very fast. So we've not only had a golden age of strong global economic growth, but we've also seen dramatic reductions in global poverty rates, and surely that is something that we all think is very, very important. This is just to set the global image. And why has this happened? Why have we had this globally golden development during the past 25 years? Well, it's not a coincidence. Because we have increased economic freedom in almost every country all over the world during the past 25 years. There are some exceptions from that, like North Korea and Sudan and Cuba, but most other countries have increased economic freedom. Most countries have not increased it as much as Estonia has, but most countries have. All the blue dots are 160 countries of the world, which is looked upon by the people behind the index of economic freedom every year, where they try to measure the degree of economic freedom in a country. And so you can see the degree on the line, on the axis down here, the degree of economic freedom, and on that axis you can see the GDP per capita, that is, how wealthy is the country. And you can see that it's a nearly perfect correlation, that is, more economic freedom gives you more prosperity. More economic freedom gives you higher economic growth. More economic freedom brings you lower unemployment and better social conditions. So, the golden age that I described is no coincidence. It's because countries have increased their economic freedom. And so what is economic freedom? Well, I think we will hear more about that later on, but economic freedom is basically that there is a lot of freedom for companies and for citizens alike to have voluntary interaction in society. That is, produce, consume, invest, trade, etc. If you have a high degree of such freedoms, you will also have a high degree of prosperity in the country. And so, what kind of reforms have actually taken place in the world during the past 25 years? Well, first of all, almost every industrialized country have done the kind of reforms mentioned in the first bullet point. That is, first of all, better macroeconomic frameworks. We are no longer in the 1970s of stagflation and runaway deficits, etc. We have better macroeconomic frameworks. We have independent central banks, we have quite low inflation, and we have budgets under fairly good control. We have also much freer trade in the world, which is why global trade has actually doubled several times during these 25 years. Because we have freer trade, and that has contributed to the globally golden age and the poverty reduction. We have also much freer investments because the FDI has doubled also several times as a share of the global economy. And most countries have also deregulated product markets. I don't know if you remember, but a decade or two ago, it was very difficult in any Western country to get a taxi. People stood in line to wait for a taxi. Nowadays, we, in most countries, have taxis waiting in line for customers. So that's the kind of change you will get if you deregulate product markets, and you will have a supply which matches the demand. So this is things that almost every country has done. But on the second bullet point, you will have things where there have been pioneers that have been doing more. You will have pioneers in taxes. Estonia was the first country in the Western world that introduced a flat tax in 1994 at 26%, I believe, which has since then been lowered, and ever since, Estonia has had a fantastic economic growth. The flat tax is now a fact in, I think, 26 countries in the world. So that is a pioneer, Estonia was first, but it's now been exported. And that is, well, it provides you a transparent tax system which makes work and education profitable. Labor markets. A number of countries have done structural reforms in the labor markets with great success, and I think New Zealand was one of the first countries in the mid-1980s when they basically deregulated the labor market and took away many hiring and firing regulations, making it easier both to hire and to fire, and so they haven't had a problem with unemployment ever since. You can go to Netherlands to study healthcare, because they've done a very impressive healthcare reform where every person in the country now has a private healthcare insurance. So they go to an insurance company, they can choose which insurance company they want, and they pick the healthcare insurance. It's mandatory, so everyone has to have it, but they can choose which kind, and the insurance companies are competing to attract the customers. And in the second row, the insurance companies are purchasing healthcare services from private competing providers. So you have choice and competition, and we have already seen lower healthcare prices. That's, I think, an impressive reform. We can see reforms in education. My home country, Sweden, has actually introduced school vouchers in 1993, which means that you can take basically the equivalent amount that you would cost in a public school and then go to a private school. And we have since then had a dramatic increase in private schools, and then thanks to the choice and the increase in private schools, we have competition between public and private schools, and we have increase in quality thanks to that. Pensions, a number of countries have done pensions reforms. Again, my home country, Sweden, has basically abolished the mandatory retirement age, which means that you can retire whenever you like to do, but if you retire late, you will get more in a pension. And so we also cut the public pensions levels quite a lot, and we have more private pensions. So I think we have to a large extent diffused the so-called demographic time bomb in Sweden. And then also, just to mention a last pioneer, Australia has, in entrepreneurship, has managed to have 13% of their population in entrepreneurial activity. Sweden has only 3.5%. I don't know the figure for Estonia, but I know that Australia is very high. How did they do that? Well, they took away lots of regulations for entrepreneurs, they decreased taxes, and they also decentralized the wage setting system so that it's now done on the firm level. This is just to show that this is the cause of the great global development, and the countries that have done these reforms have also been very, very successful, because to a large extent, structural, long-term, free market reforms produce results that are very good and even quite surprisingly good, even for some of the proponents. And of course, Estonia, as I initially mentioned, has been one of the great successes in this story.